I do welcome one and all who are just taking part in this very just webinar series. So may I make it very clear that webinars, they are meant to upgrade we all people. Upgradation is inseparable part of one and all. It has got great deal of importance. Without upgradation, I think that moving in a proper direction is not possible. So the main intention of Regional Academic Authority, that is the leading institution of this very state, that people of, especially English teachers of Maharashtra, they should not be, lagging behind when it comes to deliver the proper teaching methods, ideologies, and etc., etc., etc. So they are to be upgraded, and they should be brought into live stream every now and then. For that very purpose, webinars have been arranged and organized by Regional Academy Authority, Aurangabad. Sorry, now it has been called Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar. I beg your pardon. Dear friends, dear friends, formerly, the webinars were delivered by Nisar Sheikh, Suyog Dikshit, Harsha Chavan, Khaja Moinuddin. And all these are the prominent contributors when it comes to, enriching the field of English.
Oh, there you go.
So they have really given their very best. And I think that due to COVID, so a great gap, or rather than, the gap needs to be bridged as earlier as possible. And this is one of the major steps towards it. Now teaching is in full swing. So if beside teaching, if proper ways how to impart the language in the best manner, if it has to be taught to one and all, so it will definitely benefit in the best interest of our state. And today, really, we are very much fortunate that we have got able leader to have a word with you. Definitely, a lot of problems of yours will be solved. You will get the clear-cut direction or idea towards the development of English language amongst the Maharashtrian students, especially Marathi medium students. They are in great need of this very particular subject, because this is the language of employability. A lot of things are depend on English. So without saying today's honorable speaker is Dr. Ujjwal Karvande sir. He is an embodiment of devotion, dedication, and application. Really, he has been giving his 200% when it comes to enrichment of teachers of Maharashtra. A lot more things can be said about him, but really, he is the man of principle. And he is always absorbed in case of thinking on top of the list. So without delaying too much, shall I ask the translator, I can say, Mr. Prakash Wagmare sir, please introduce today's speaker and add into information of our audience. Thank you. It's over to Prakash Wagmare.
Thank you, Pramod Gundawani sir. Am I audible to you?
Yeah, you are audible. Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, one and all. Dear teachers, teacher educators, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, I warmly welcome you all to a webinar series for teachers, 5th edition, organized by the State Regional Academic Authority English Expertise, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, in the esteemed online presence of Honorable Director, Regional Academic Authority, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, Dr. Smita Rathod Madam, and in the distinguished online presence of Honorable Head of Department, Regional Academic Authority, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, Dr. Vishalji Taide sir. Friends, in this 5th edition of this webinar series, which is meant for teachers only, we are honored to have with us a distinguished expert in the field of education, Dr. Ujjwalji Karwande sir, friend, who has a wide range of experience in imparting training such as revised curriculums of English 1995 Standard 10. He has been a resource person in Smart PT program, district, divisional and state level training program as well. He has also the resource person in revised curriculum of primary education 24, state level spoken English training. Friend, his educational contribution towards education field, he has been an active participant in development of English language kit. He has prepared teacher handbooks for learning enhancement program. He has also designed the syllabus of English for children admitted in age appropriate class. He has also conducted a series of webinars for English language mentors. He was an active member of writing committee for position papers on language education under National Education Policy 2022. Friends, sir, ambition is devising a suitable methodology for learning English language standard level for the rural learners from Maharashtra. Sir has a special interest in teaching learning of English, applying information communication technology in English. Sir likes to prepare PowerPoint presentation on various topics. Sir has wide interest in current educational trend and phonetics. When we look at Sir's hobbies, we find that Sir hobbies are collecting educational software, sharing educational information on social media like Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter. Friends, he has been a participant in educational seminars. At least he has participated in 16 types of various seminars, out of which I would like to mention few of them due to time constraints. Friends, he was a part of organization of state level symposia for English teacher forum, that is ETF moderators under the CHASE project in 2018 and 19 in Aurangabad and Sangamner respectively. Friends, sir was a participant in 53rd annual International ITFL conference and exhibition organized at Liverpool, England by the International Association of Teachers of English for a foreign language during 2nd and 5th April 2019. So friends, we have a lot more to say about sir, but due to the time constraint, friends, we are really fortunate to have Dr. Ujjwal Karwande sir here to share his valuable insights with us today. Thank you. It's over to Pramod sir. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello, Pramod sir. Hello, Pramod sir. Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Now I would like to. Yes, sir. Pramod sir, please go on.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Just I beg your pardon, some technical issues I have been facing over here. Okay, no problem. Thank you very much, Prakash Wagmare sir. Really, by hearing all these details, you can come to know the quality of this very individual who is going to appear before you. Really, he is the role model in the real sense. He is the moderator, and a lot of adjectives can be added, after his name. His devotion. I think that he has got law. He has given lion's share when it comes to English, especially of Maharashtra. So, without talking a lot, may I request Dr. Ujjwal Karvande sir, please deliver your webinar.
Thank you very much, Pramod ji. Thank you very much. Namaskar. A very good afternoon to one and all. And thank you very much for saying so nice things for me. And I'm sure now the expectations of the audience and all the viewers must be raised now. And I pray the God, the Almighty, to give me the power to meet their expectations today. A very good afternoon. Honorable Director, Regional Academic Authority, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, Dr. Sunita Rathod Madam. Honorable Principal, Diet Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, Dr. Vaishali Kamble Madam. Honorable Head of the English Language Department of the SCRT Maharashtra, Dr. Arunji Sangolkar sir. Honorable HOD English from Regional Academic Authority, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, my dear friend Dr. Vishalji Saide sir. All Honorable HODs of English from the Diet, overall the Maharashtra state. All my dear colleagues from the Regional Academic Authority, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, and all my dear colleagues from my own institute, that's Diet Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar. I would like to specially mention here the name of Dr. Shindeji, who is providing very important technical support to all of us. And it's because of his support that I'm able to present in front of you. And at last but not least, and very important, for whom I am here, all my dear esteemed teachers of English language. I welcome you all wholeheartedly. And to begin with, I would like to first of all beg your pardon that due to the lack of time, I couldn't prepare a special presentation for you for this particular webinar. But I'm sure I'm going to use the presentation that I had prepared for the symposium, but still not let others down, those who attended the symposium. Definitely you also will have something new to experience in this particular session. As you know, this is the session about oral language development. And oral language development is gaining importance once again after the inception of the Nipun Bharat mission. And the very first component in the language literacy is the oral language development. And as such, it has again gained some importance in the language development in the present scenario. So let us not waste more time, and I would request your permission to start my presentation. My presentation has some sounds also, which I request that if you are not able to hear, please let me know, give me the feedback so that I can work on that. And then maybe we can solve the problem. So let us start with the presentation. I hope the screen is visible now. Is it?
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir.
it is visible.
Very much. So this is about the oral language development. Here, the acquisition of the language begins. It starts with listening and speaking, isn't it? These are the very primary skills in language learning, any language over the globe. So it's the oral language development which is used, the oral language, the aspect of the productive skill. And as such, at the initial stage, we need to focus on the oral language development. Well, dear friend, this is the agenda for today's session. We'll talk a little about language. Then we'll move on to the oral language. What is the oral language? And then we'll discuss a little about the development of oral language. And at the end, let's take some, and we'll try to classify those questions. So I'd like to start my presentation with language. Under the language, you see the nature, function, and the medium of language. First of all, let us see the nature of the language. Here, I have for you various types of languages. First, I would like to play the first video for you. Listen to it very carefully. It's the language of sound, where only sounds are used. So I'm going to play this video for you. It's also a kind of language, isn't it? Was it audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is also a kind of language where words are not used. So it's a non-verbal language. It's a language of sound. Especially, it brings the difference between the human beings and the animals. The animals are not able to use words. So their language is of sounds, and it's the non-verbal language. And now let us have a look at the verbal language that we human beings use. Sorry, I would like to go back and play it again.
Everyone says you have to get ready to retire financially. And of course you do. But what they don't tell you is that you also have to get ready psychologically. Who knew? But it's important for a couple of reasons. First, 10,000 North Americans will retire today and every day for the next 10 to 15 years. This is a retirement tsunami. And when these folks come crashing onto the beach, a lot of them are going to feel like fish out of water without a clue as to what to expect. Secondly, it's important because there is a very good chance that you will live 1/3 of your life in retirement. So it's important that you have a heads up to the fact that there will be significant psychological changes and challenges that come with it.
Okay, so this is the language we human beings use to communicate, isn't it? Dear friends, there is another language that is being used in the computer science, and it's the language of zeros and ones. I would like to play this video for you.
Computer language. As you know, computer is a machine that works on electricity. Depending upon the two states of electricity, presence or absence of electrical pulse, a computer can understand only binary language, that is the language of zeros and ones. We use ASCII, American Standard Code for Information Interchange, codes, made up of binary digits to represent alphabet and decimal numbers inside the computer. Binary language is also known as machine language. In the beginning, programs were written only in machine language, since it was the only language understood by the computer.
Well, that is the language used by the computers only on and off zeros and ones. So this is how the computer communicates with the different gadgets. And though it gives us the output in the form of the human beings can understand, but still at the back end, when the computers work, they use the language of zeros and ones. That is the binary language, where only two codes are used, zeros and ones. Let us have a look at one more language, that is the Indian Sign Language. Let's play this video. interesting, isn't it? We have seen a few languages. I don't claim that these are the only kinds of languages that exist on this earth. Probably you might have heard or might have experienced some other kinds of languages also. So if you know any other kinds of languages, so I request all our viewers to kindly type in the chat box if they know something more than this, if they know any other kinds of languages also. As I'm presenting here, I'll not be able to see the chat box. So in that case, Pramodji, can you help me?
I think that I too have heard these three, the types you have mentioned. The body language, I think that just sign language and body language, yeah, both are similar in my consideration.
Let us ask our viewers to type in the chat box if they know any other language, any other kind of language other than this. We'll give them 1 minute if they know such a kind of language. So please do write in the chat box and share with us. Pramodji, I request you if you are able to see the chat box, can you read out the different kinds of languages people have responded? It's not obligatory, absolutely. If you know only, then only you are requested to type. Otherwise, let's move ahead. Absolutely fine, no issues at all. Okay, so these are the various kinds of languages. So I thought that it was necessary to discuss a little about these various languages. So let's move on to the functions of the languages now. Mainly, the languages are used. All the languages over the globe, they are used for communication. For example, in the communication, there is a message, the sender and the receiver, isn't it? And there is a medium to carry the message. So this is the system of communication. And for any communication, may it be a verbal or non-verbal communication, we need some message, we need the sender of it, we need the receiver. And if there is a common set of rules between the sender and the receiver, then only the communication is successful. So we need to have certain specific rules at the end of the sender. He should follow certain rules, and the same rules should be followed by the receiver. And they can send communication using the language. And the various media are used for the communication. Mainly because of the language, various language, of course. I'm not talking about oral language. We'll come to the different kinds of languages later on. But for communication, we need language. The another thing that we need the language for expression. We need to express our feelings, our thoughts, our ideas, our emotions, needs, moods, etc. Human beings are very social human beings, isn't it? And they cannot live without language. They cannot live without expressing themselves. If you are asked to keep mum for a full day, I'm sure you will not be able to do so, even for 1 hour. So it's a natural instinct of the human beings to express themselves. They either express themselves orally or through written or through symbol language also. So this is the main function of the language, that we use language for communication and to express our thoughts, feelings, ideas, emotions, needs. Let's move on to the next frame. These are the media of languages, the oral language, which we are very much aware of. And we use the oral language for verbal and non-verbal communication. The human beings use the oral language for the verbal communication. And of course, the animals, they cannot use the verbal, so they use the non-verbal oral language. We have seen one example of Tarzan. There is another example of Mowgli also from Jungle Book. As he lived in a herd of the sheep, he lived in the herd of the fox. So he learned the language of the fox and he used the language of the fox. So that was the non-verbal language that Mowgli used to speak. That is also kind of language, of course, yes. Then another media of language is written language. It also can be verbal and non-verbal. Mostly we use the verbal written language, but at the same time, it also can be non-verbal written communication where we can simply draw pictures and we can communicate our messages. So this is also a way to communicate using the written language. Then we have sign languages and where signals, different signals are used. For example, you might have come across the news for hearing impaired. A few frames ago, we saw the Indian Sign Language where very standard signs were used. For example, for India, yesterday, different symbols are used, different signs are used. You might have daily we experience the traffic signals, isn't it? That is also a kind of language. Red says stop, yellow says slow down or get ready, and green says, isn't it? There is no word there, isn't it? There is no any word used there for the language. It's the language of traffic, isn't it? Traffic signals. That is also a kind of language, but that is non-verbal language. And in the past days, in the old days, we used to have the telegraph. So for the telegraph, Morse code was used. That was a system of language where only dots and dashes were used. Dots and dashes. So the different combinations of dots and dashes used to convey different messages, different alphabets. So that was the language that was in use for many years before the inception of the new technology. So that is also a kind of language, but that is not a verbal language. That is a sign language, which is later converted into a verbal language and a printed message in the form of telegraph. So these are the different media of languages that we use. Now let's move on to the oral language. Let's shift from the language to the oral language. So under the oral language, we need to consider two aspects of the oral language. The first one is the mechanics of speaking, and the second one is the actual speaking skill. We need to consider the different mechanics of the speaking in order to be intelligible speaker. For example, under the mechanics of speaking, we need to consider these three main aspects, that is phonology, speech organs, and speech features. This adds to your intelligibility. If you have good knowledge of phonology, speech organs, and the speech features, then you can improvise your speaking ability and speaking skill, and thus you can become a very intelligible speaker. So let us consider phonology. I'll not go into the details of the phonology, but as everyone knows, especially when they think of English language, we have 44 distinct sounds, and whereas we have only 26 letters in English. So that's why sometimes reading English text can be a challenge for our students, because there is no one-for-one correspondence in the spoken English and the written English. And that's why we see that there are 44 sounds and 26 letters need to represent those 44 sounds. So there can be some problems for our learners, but still we can overcome all those problems. But as a teacher of English language, we should know what is this sound system in English. There are 20 vowel sounds and 24 consonant sounds. These 24 consonant sounds are further subdivided into voice and voiceless sounds. In this particular session, I'm not going to go into the details of phonetics, what is a voice sound and what is a voiceless sound. Maybe some other day we'll definitely discuss about the phonetics, if it's your demand, of course. So this is the phonology. This is and our students also should be aware of the phonology, because every language is unique. You know, every language has its own sounds also. Of course, I agree that most of the languages over the globe have a common set of sounds also. But at the same time, some certain sounds are there which differentiate English language from Marathi language. We'll come to it later on. Dear friends, there are speech organs which help us to produce the sound, isn't it? So the lung, the speech organs include every part from the lungs till the lips. So all these systems is involved in the production of sound. So the air comes out of your lungs and which goes to your pharynx, and then it either vibrates to your vocal cords, or if your vocal cords are kept apart, then there is no audible friction. So they are voiceless sounds. And then the note that is produced in your vocal cords is then modified in your mouth cavity and in your nasal cavity. And using the movement of your lips and your tongue and your lower jaw and the internal movements of the soft palate, we are able to produce different sounds. Otherwise, our system, our vocal cord system just produces one note only, but that is modified in our mouth cavity. Of course, this happens. Human beings are supercomputer, I believe, because you say while I'm speaking, I need not calculate anything. All the calculations are done automatically, and I'm able to produce the sounds which I need to produce in order to communicate with you. So this happens automatically. But as the teachers of English, we should know what is this mechanism, what are the different organs involved in the production of the sounds. Then we have different places of articulation. What is a place of articulation? A place of articulation is the place where there is closure of the air, and then the air is released, so that we can hear different sounds. So this closure can be at the lips, it can be at the lower lips and upper teeth, it can be at the tip of the tongue, at the back of the tongue. So these are the different places where the air flow is blocked, and then the air is released, and we listen to different sounds. So there are different places where there is closure of the air passage, decides which different sounds we hear. For example, when we hear p, so the closure is at the two lips. And of course, there are different manners of articulation also, how we articulate different sounds. There are different, what are these different manners? They are plosive, they are fricative, they are affricate, they are lateral, or there are some frictionless continuants also. So maybe in the next session, we'll discuss about the phonetics, where we can have a detailed look at these different manners of articulation and places of articulation. So for the time being, I think this is enough for us. Then we also need to consider the speech features to make our speech intelligible. We need to consider the stress. Especially the stress is very important in English language. It is said that English is a time stress language, where there are stresses at regular times. Unlike Marathi, we stress every word in a sentence, and we stress every letter. So that is, every letter is clearly audible in Marathi language. But in English, we see that every sound is not given prominence. If, for example, if we are pronouncing a word, then a particular part of the word gets the stress, and the others are unstressed. In the same way, when we utter a sentence, every word is not stressed, only the nucleus gets the stress. And then, for example, the nouns, verbs, etc., these are the words which are stressed in a sentence. The structural words are not stressed in a sentence. So if we follow these very simple rules, then we can make our speech intelligible. We also need to consider the intonation, the fall and rise in the tone. For example, and this needs to be practiced. There is no need to use the rules where to use the rising tone, where to use the falling tone. Even if we ratify all the rules, and if we do not bring it into practice, if we do not apply it in our speech, then it's futile, I think. So that's why we should have the knowledge of it, but we should apply it in our speech. For example, use the rising tone for the verbal questions, and for the statements, and for the imperative sentences, as well as for the WH word questions, we use the falling intonation. There is rise and fall also. Different intonation patterns are there, which are used to communicate your moves also. If a particular sentence said in different tones, it conveys different moods. So this happens. So we need to be very careful while using the appropriate term, and we need to use the pauses also. A proper pause at a proper place gives meaning to your speech. Otherwise, you might have the experience of some of the examples in Marathi or in English also, where if a pause is given at the wrong place, it completely changes the meaning of the sentence, isn't it? So I need not talk more about that, because considering the time constraint, I need to skip through now. But before we skip, let us have a look at the figure which shows the speech organs. So here we can see this is the windpipe here, and which is connected to your lungs. So it's only while exhaling that you can produce the sound. So when you are exhaling, the air comes out of your lung with force, and it passes through this windpipe. And in the windpipe, we have glottis, larynx, where vocal cords are there, which produce a note, and this note is then modified in the mouth cavity or in the nasal cavity, and it comes out of either through mouth or through nose. So different, these are the movable parts, the lower lip, the teeth, the jaw, the tongue, and this is the soft palate. These are the movable parts in our speech mechanism. And they, with the combination of these different parts, different speech organs, we are able to produce the different sounds in English. So that was about the speech mechanism. Let's move on. Let's look at the mechanics of speaking again, because in the earlier only I said that there are two aspects of speaking that we need to consider. The first one is the mechanics, and the second one is the actual speaking skill. Well, dear friend, I talked a little about the differences in the Marathi sounds and in the English sounds. So, especially the correspondence between the sounds and the symbols. In English, there is no one-to-one correspondence, whereas in Marathi, we do have one-to-one correspondence. So whatever is written is read as it is written in Marathi, but it's not so in English. Here are a few sounds which differ in Marathi and in English. For example, for the articulation of the sounds pa, ka, wa, ka, and ra, we use different kinds of articulation in English and in Marathi. For example, in Marathi, the sound of pa is pa, that is bilabial. It's produced with the help of our two lips in Marathi. Whereas in English, it is labiodental. Lower lip and upper is help in the production of pa, and there is friction. The air passes through the passage between the lower lip and the upper tip. Whereas in Marathi, there is complete closure of air behind two lips, and then we say pa. So, and this should be followed. Otherwise, English would not sound English. It may sound Marlish also. English that is said in Marathi term. So it affects the intelligibility of our speech, and that's why a speaker of English language should be aware of the different speech features. Also, the length of vowel sounds make a big difference in the communication. There are short vowel sounds, there are long vowel sounds. They are there in Marathi language also. But we Indian people, tend to use short vowel in place of long vowel, or a long vowel in place of short vowel. Many times we exchange these places, and we are not able to communicate effectively if we are replacing a short vowel with a long vowel and a long vowel with a short vowel sound. So we need to be very careful. We need to be very careful while using the appropriate word. So there are pairs of words, minimal pairs of words, where there is a difference of only one sound. Other sounds are the same. So the short vowel and long vowel sounds we can say they can be the pairs of minimal pairs. So we need to be very careful. For example, L-E-A-V is leave, that is a long vowel sound, and we should use it as leave only. and live is short vowel sound live. So there is a difference between live and live. We cannot replace live with live. Otherwise, it completely changes the meaning of the sentence, isn't it? It's totally opposite. Live and live is totally opposite. Some of my friends might have recalled the experience of Smart City, where we had studied the example, you must not leave, isn't it? And if one says you must not live, so it completely changes the meaning. Can anybody add to this? If you are able to recall our Smart City training program. For example, Pramod, would you like to say? Hope I am audible. Okay, I'll share myself. Suppose you are a guest and you have gone to a particular host, or you are a host and some guests come to you, and you want that your guests should live more with you and they shouldn't go early. And when the guest asks for your permission to leave, so what you should say, you shouldn't leave, isn't it? It means that you want that your guests should stay with you for some more time. But if you say you shouldn't leave, it means that you should die. Immediately you should die. So that totally changes the meaning, isn't it? So that's why we should be very careful while using the short vowel sounds and the long vowel sounds.
Excuse me, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Just that, have you come today and have you come to die? Australian the sentence is that. So today is uttered to die in that sense. So that kind of, yeah. Thank you.
Sure. And over the globe, we see that there are variations in the production of the sounds. But generally we follow the RP over the globe, isn't it? So that was about the long and short vowels, and of course, many times we replace a with a. This happens, but in order to make our speech intelligible, we should follow the pronunciation rule. The stressed and unstressed vowel sounds. Especially in English, we have a variety of vowel sounds, isn't it? 20 vowel sounds. We need to be very careful while differentiating between different vowel sounds. Then the clusters of sounds. Especially we have this is very important issue, I think. Most of the Indian speakers are not able to produce the clusters properly, and that really affects our speech. So that's why I think we should pay proper attention. We should give a speech training to our students of the cluster sound, 2 consonant clusters and 3 consonant clusters. The 2 consonant clusters are very frequent in English, whereas 3 consonant clusters are rare. For example, 3 consonant clusters can be str, t, and r, str as in straw. Whereas we have a number of 2 consonant clusters, like say t as in stop. Then we have tr as in train. Then we have br as in bring. We have dr as in drag, drop. We have t as in opt. Then st as in soft. Then gr as in gross. So these are the very important aspects of the language. So I think that we as a teacher should conduct practice of the clusters, but it shouldn't be in isolation. For example, just I uttered some of the consonant clusters, but I urge you to give the practice in while teaching something. For example, it shouldn't be in separate. So there should be some, I would say, while you are teaching reading or while you are teaching the speech, then you should get it practiced. So these are the mechanics of speaking. Let's move on to the next slide now. Let's see what is actual speaking skill. So utterances are very important, especially of words. So we discuss a little about the word. Is the progression from words, then phrases, and then to sentences. So proper phrase should be used, intonation should be used in the utterances. We can get practice of situational speech. I know it's a tough task, and it's a course, a carefully designed course that we need to follow to develop the speaking skill of our learners. Especially when it's the other language of the second or other language of the learners. So at that time, we need to be very careful, and we need to be to consider our learners and accept them with their errors. So it's a situational speech. We can tell our students what are the different situations when we can use the different structures in our English language. We also need to use the contextual diction. For example, in every field, we have a different set of diction, different words are used. And if we replace a particular word with the other word, it's not appropriate. So the language in every field requires a certain set of words, isn't it? Some word registers are there. So we need to select very carefully. For example, if it's a pedagogy, then we need to use certain words like learning, teaching, and aids, educational aids, etc. These are the different words that are related to the field of teaching. So in every profession, there are different words used. So a speaker should select the words very carefully while speaking. Then there are regular expressions which we can get practice, like greetings. These are the fixed expressions. Greetings are, for example, morning, good afternoon, good evening, etc. Wishing others, wish you a very happy birthday, many happy returns of the day, etc. These are the fixed expressions. These are the regular expressions which every learner, every speaker should know. So we can, to begin with, we can get a practice, get all these regular expressions practice, and then later on we can move on to self-expression. Of course, self-expression is the aim, and this is the we should aim at the self-expression. But of course, in the course of the development, we need to begin with this kind of expressions also. We also need to take into consideration the collocation. Collocation are the words which are always used together, isn't it? So, for example, there are many phrasal verbs which take up different prepositions, and for example, there are certain words which are always combined with other words. For example, bread and butter. This is a kind of collocation, isn't it? So if we have the knowledge, if we practice these collocations, it will definitely add to the fluency of your speech. So as a speaker, we should try to have the collection of these collocations with us. Then again, the very important thing in the production of speech is the construction. And most of our students struggle here because they don't know the syntax. So that's why they struggle. They have the tendency to think in Marathi or their mother tongue, and then they tend to translate, and then they speak in the target language, that's English. So in this process of translation, they are either not able to recall the words, or they lose the fluency of their speech. And that's why they should know the syntax of the target language, and they should, if you are able to develop the habit of thinking in English, then you will help your learners to overcome the problem of fluency. So that's why our students should know the syntax of the language. What is syntax? Is simply the word arrangement in a sentence, isn't it? In English, we know that there is a subject and predicate. Every sentence has a subject and a predicate. And in English, especially, my observation over the years that the verbs and prepositions are not used appropriately. This is my personal observation, of course. Your observations may vary, but I think that a speaker of the English language should work on the verb, especially the helping work. They play a vital role in the communication. Especially our students struggle in the appropriate use of the helping verbs. They are not able to find appropriate words to express their feelings, their thoughts, or their moods, etc. And we Marathi people tend to translate and use the prepositions as we use in Marathi language, isn't it? But I'll give you one example. In Marathi we say मी मराठीमध्ये चांगला आहे किंवा मी इंग्रजीमध्ये चांगला आहे. So in English we should not use I'm good in English or I'm good in Marathi, but it has some fixed expressions. In English we say I'm good at English or I'm good at Marathi. I'm good at speaking Marathi. I'm good at speaking English. So we use the preposition at there. But we Marathi people tend to think in Marathi, then translate, and that's why we see that it's my general observation that as we do not develop this habit of thinking in English, so the English is not around us all the time, and then we think in Marathi and translate in English, and we use the wrong preposition. So we should be very careful as the speakers of English language. We should use the appropriate preposition while speaking. And there is always subject-verb agreement in English. This should be followed very strictly. Otherwise, it badly affects your speech and it badly affects your intelligibility. And that's why these are the important aspects of speaking skill that we need to consider when we think of improving our speaking skills. Well, dear friends, a good speech is always intelligible. Intelligible means it's spoken in such a way that the listeners understand it easily. If I'm speaking and if my listeners or my learners are not able to understand what I'm saying, then my speech is not intelligible. So I, as a speaker, should try to make my speech intelligible so that it's easily understood by the listener. My speech at the same time should be cohesive. Cohesive means one sentence should be connected to the other. The next sentence should be connected to the previous sentence. So this is cohesion in your speech. You shouldn't speak distinct different sentences which have no connections at all. So it affects your cohesiveness of the speech. So a good speech is always cohesive and is coherent. It means that you should speak, you should strictly stick to the topic which you are dealing with. If you are speaking about a particular topic, then your speech should be coherent to it. It should be related to only that topic, only that topic. And so these are the features of a good speech. And you need to consider, as a speaker of English language, you need to consider these features when you speak English language. Well, dear friends, this is a very important issue that I want to discuss with all of you now. Speech, I have heard many speeches. I always come across the speeches given by the students or by the different individuals on WhatsApp. And when we started the spoken English movement in Maharashtra, there were many videos poured in the WhatsApp groups. And when I went, not just me, but many of our friends also, when they went through it, we clearly got an idea that these are the rote speeches. So what is a rote speech? In fact, it's a mechanical or habitual repetition. It's spoken without understanding. There is lack of understanding in the rote speech. And there is always stress on memorizing. Dear friends, this can be the beginning of our speech training, but this shouldn't be the end of our speech training. And we should be very careful that at a certain stage, we need to lead our students from the rote speech to the extempore speech. So rote speech versus extempore speech, this is very important. Our aim should be that our students should be able to speak extemporally. What is an extempore speech? It's spoken or done without preparation. So in an extempore speech, there is no memorization. There is no memorizing. We do not memorize anything. We may ponder on some points to talk about. For example, for this particular session, I have prepared myself, of course, but I haven't memorized everything. So whatever I'm talking now is extempore. So I have everything at the end of back of my mind, but I haven't memorized anything. And I'm understanding every word that I'm speaking. This is the 100% comprehension speech. So whatever I'm speaking, it's not out of the I would say the drilling practice. I haven't memorized anything, but I'm speaking to you, and I understand every word that I'm talking to you. So that is the extempore speech, and we should aim to lead our students to extempore speech. There was a time when the spoken English movement had begun, and everyone was satisfied with the rote speech. So I urge you, my dear friends, all teachers, that you shouldn't be satisfied with the rote speech, and you should immediately try to lead your students to extempore speech. I have an example here for you of an extempore speech. This is the presentation of Suborno Bari. Suborno Bari. So this is a professor of just 11 years, a professor of science and mathematics. Let's listen to his speech. This is not a speech, this is his lecture actually, but this is extempore. Let us experience it.
Hello everybody, my name is Abuna Isaac Bear from Bear Science Lab, and today I just wanted to talk to you about a really cool new concept that I just discovered called the pigeonhole principle. Yes, the pigeonhole principle. So, basically, this is what it says. Let's say you have, I don't know, 6 holes, and let's say you have, let me draw a pigeon real quick. So here's our pigeon. I'm going to make it a little chubby. I know it looks like a duck right now, but trust me, it's a pigeon. So this is just like some stuff. So here is our pigeon, right? And so what I'm going to do is, let's say we don't have just one of these, but let's say we have 7. So 2, let's copy that. 4, let's copy that. 8, and now we just erase one. So this is what the principle says. We have 7 pigeons and 6 boxes. So this might seem quite obvious, but that means that at least one of these boxes has to have more than one pigeon in it. So if I try arranging them, let's just shrink them down a little bit more so that they fit in the box. It's lagging a little bit. So let's try arranging them. So if we put one pigeon in here, let's say, what's it so laggy? One pigeon in here, one pigeon in here, Lord, one pigeon in here, one pigeon in here, and here's the final thing. Now, all of these have at least one pigeon. So where is this last one going to go? Well, no matter where it goes, that hole is going to have more than one pigeon. How can this be proved? Well, it's quite an obvious principle, and it can be done off intuition, but to really prove it, you got to think about the contrapositive. So, the statement, the general statement of the pigeonhole principle is that if you have n pigeons and m holes such that n is greater than m, then one hole must have greater than one pigeon. Must contain more than one pigeon.
Okay. So that was about, this was one example of how an extempore speech can be. So here, Suborno was speaking everything intentionally. He understood every word that he was speaking. It was not a kind of ratified or rote kind of speech. And we should aim at such speech. Let's move ahead. So that's about the speaking skill. That is speaking skill. It is not just simply ratification and then speaking without understanding. So speaking without understanding is not a speaking skill. So let us pay attention to some more aspects of speaking skills. Well, of course, speaking skill begins with imitation, but then we should lead our learners to independent speaking. This is very important. We shouldn't be satisfied with the imitation only. Of course, we do not expect the beginners to become independent speakers, isn't it? Initially, they need to imitate, because without imitation, they will not gather, they will not acquire the language. So if you want our learners to acquire the language, they should have some models in front of them, and which they can initially imitate, and then they can use in their day-to-day life. They can apply them in their day-to-day life. Application of whatever students learn in their real life is absolutely necessary to make them intelligible and good speakers of English language. In the course, those students begin with imitation, then we should develop the habit of speaking with support. And this support can be in the form of pictures as stimuli, or we can provide certain structures to help students speak in English. Of course, so this is the progression from imitation to independent speaking. Then we can move our learners to use the fixed expressions to make their speech more intelligible. And then at the end, our students should reach the extempore speech. So I know this, prima facie, this looks very easy when I'm talking, but it's a very difficult course that students follow, and we need to be very, very patient. It's not like a magic wand that immediately we move the magic wand and our students are able to speak. No, not at all. It requires a lot of practice, as well as supervised practice, of course, as well as a lot of patience on the part of teacher. Teachers also should need to accept our learners with their errors, and I'll come to that screen. Our next screen only tells about these things. So the development of oral language needs to follow certain approach techniques, and we can use different tools to help our students develop their oral language. So what are those different things, approaches, techniques, and tools? Let's have a look at it. Well, dear friends, in the beginning, we need to follow the oral approach, means the approach which is related to ears and tongue. Oral means related to listening. So this one helps the children to learn a new language. They listen. Actually, students follow the oral approach in their mother tongue too, because every child learns the mother tongue even by listening and by imitating. So oral approach is nothing else but listening and repeating it. So that is the oral approach. Is the training of ears and tongue. You need to train your ears and the tongue. For that, you need to make your classroom input rich. The environment should be input rich, so that there are good visuals in front of the students, and they listen. They have many ample opportunities to listen to good English, and then they have opportunities to speak and develop their language. Students learn the language parts and different structures through listening and through reading. So these are the gateways to language acquisition. So our students should listen to good English. They should read good English matter, which will definitely add to their language, and they will, in the course, they will learn the language and they will acquire the language. So, but at the same time, we should be very careful that initially it can be repetition, it can be practiced, but later on it should be self-expression. Here are a few techniques which can help us to develop the speaking skill of our learners. The first one is repetition. Of course, we need to begin with repetition. For example, when you are teaching a particular rhyme to a child, of course, the rhymes the different, I would say, passages or the poems or the rhymes, they are there to give the test of language to our learners. They are not for 100% comprehension. It's expected that students should listen and develop a test of English language. They should get habituated to listening to English sounds, English stress patterns, English intonation patterns. So through listening to different matters, poems and text, scientific texts or different exchanges and dialogues, they can listen to them and then they can repeat. So this is repetition is the technique that we can initially adopt and help our learners to acquire the language at the initial stage. Then it should be a controlled practice. We can ask students gradually to speak. We can ask them to speak on their own, but it should be controlled. We should give support to the students when they are practicing. We should tell them, we should provide certain structures, we should provide text with with various blanks to fill in, and which will help students. Because you see, if you ask a child to speak on his own, and if you are not providing any support to the child, then the child will not be able to speak. So that's why it needs to be a controlled practice after the repetition. Then it should be a supervised practice. At a stage when you think that now your students can manage on their own, but at the same time you should also supervise, and as per the need you should correct your students. Of course, correction is also a very a thing that should be done very tenderly, and then we can lead our students to the independent speech. Here are a few tips which I hope will be helpful while teaching the speaking skill to our learners. To make learners listen with understanding. This is not just listen, but listen and gain the keywords. And this can be done with the support of pictures or visuals. So when you see, students have something in front of their eyes to see and relate with. So that will help the students to understand the key messages and the keywords in the message. Then you create opportunities for self-expression. As a teacher, I should create more and more opportunities for my learners to speak. We can explore different situations in the classroom to do so. Appreciate the efforts of our learners to speak in English. Speaking English is not a cup of tea matter. Of course, it requires a lot of effort. So when our students are putting their efforts in to speak something, we should appreciate their efforts. I know that students are not 100% correct initially when they start speaking, but we should be very, very patient and appreciate our learners when they speak, accept our learners with their errors, encourage learners to voice their opinions. So you will have many opportunities in the classroom where you can encourage your students to voice their opinions in English. But at the same time, provide scaffold if and wherever necessary. This is very important and crucial point, I'll tell you. Why? Because you need to be very judicious while providing the scaffold. You know, because if you are supporting your students every now and then your students will not learn to speak. And if you do not support your students while they are trying to speak, when they need some support, and if you are not providing that support, that in that case also the students will not learn. So students should struggle, because struggling is the sign of learning. So as such, we should allow our students to speak, allow them to make errors and mistakes. But at the same time, if they are struggling, if only they are struggling, and wherever they are struggling, we need to provide that support to the learners. Initially, accept the learners with the errors and mistakes. This is important. This is necessary. because this is a foreign language for them. This is not their mother tongue. So how can we expect them to be 100% correct initially? It's not possible. So accept them with their errors and mistakes, and then rectify and reproduce. It doesn't mean that you should say that you are wrong. No, not at all. Accept them, rectify yourself, and then get it reproduced with the help of learners. So putting an appropriate input in front of the learners also can help the child to rectify his, because students have this tendency of rectifying themselves. If they have proper correct models in front of them, then they can compare their own speech and then they can rectify. If they are not able to rectify, then we teachers need to rectify, and but at the same time it is necessary that while students are speaking, we shouldn't interrupt them. We should allow them to speak completely, and then we can move on to rectification. Error correction should be done very tenderly. It shouldn't affect the spirit of speaking. Students, because it's after ample efforts that students start speaking. Students are not ready to open up. They are not ready to speak, and that's why we need to motivate them a lot. And when they start speaking, we shouldn't immediately point out their errors, but we can we can put in front of them good models, correct models, and then help them to rectify. So help students think in English. This is very important. If you can produce this environment in your classroom, the English environment, where there is English, at least in the period of English around all students, and they are engrossed in the English environment, so which helps students to think in English. And when students think in English, they become fluent because of English. This is very important and very necessary to help our students become fluent because of English language. Explore classroom situations to use English language. Wherever there is any possibility that you think that this is a situation where I can use English language, or I can ask my students to use English language, get permission, and then talk about something, talk about feeling, sound their opinion, voice their opinion. So we should explore all these situations and provide ample opportunities to our students. And lastly, I'll come to the tools of the oral language development. To begin with, we can use the tongue twisters, which will help our students to in their speech training, especially the training of the clusters, the vowel glides, as well as the tongue twisters will help the students to differentiate between two sounds which are alike, like s and sh. Many times, many speakers are not able to differentiate between these two sounds, s and sh. The tongue twisters will help them. For the practice of also, because in our old textbooks, we had very nice material. For example, 5 fat fish. This was the twister that was given for the practice of the sound. So these tongue twisters can be used, and I suggest that you need not seek for the material at different sources. The textbook, the only source can be textbook also. You'll see, if you go through the different parts of the textbook, you'll see that there are various occasions and different materials there which will help our learners to practice speaking skills and master the speaking skill. There are many dialogues, ample dialogues are there. There are riddles where which makes the students think in English, use the language. Then there are language games like guessing game, guess who am I, for example. Students need to form the sentences of their own and ask them. So if you can convert a practice into interesting games, because students don't like mechanical practice. This is also there. If we get everything practiced mechanically, students hate it. Students don't like to practice mechanically. So every time we should convert the practice into different language games, language activities, riddles, etc. Lastly, stories also are there. If we ask our students to modulate their voice and tell a story, this also helps the students improve their speaking skills. So at the end, we should lead our students to extemporary speech and self-expression. That is what I wanted to share with you all in this session. But before I end my session, I invite questions from you. If there are any questions, you may raise your hand, and one by one, we'll let you ask your questions. So the stage is yours now. I'll stop sharing for the time being.
Okay, if you have questions, you may raise your questions.
Yeah, raise the hand so that we can allow them to.
To raise your hand so that
Not the physical hand, the digital hand, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you, Suyog sir. I was not able to read the chat. I got the chance now. If there are no doubts,
Okay. Yeah, we should. Shall we move forward?
The project will take in standard 4. Standard 4, this is the stage where we lead our students to teaching of reading and writing skills. So by the time students come in standard 4, they have ample opportunities of listening to good English language and using the language. So in standard 4, we expect students to introduce themselves, talk about their life, dislikes, talk about the situation around them. So I think, and there are many activities in the class, in our textbooks also. So if we follow the proper course that is given in our textbooks, I think it will be helpful for our learners. Rameshwari madam asked the question, this type of project. This is a very big thing. I think we need some little activities for our learners. Very little activities will help our students to improve their skills. So I take this opportunity again to thank you all, and of course I'm always there with you in the future also. If you think that you want to approach me and ask some questions to me, so this is my contact number for you and my email ID. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ujjwal Karwande sir. Really, actually, it was a great feast. Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Actually, we all want to make this world the beautiful place to live on, and for that very purpose, I think that language is very much important. Language really bound to one another, each other. So, especially teaching of English, it has been really the Herculean task in the past. But due to these kinds of intellectual giants, they have really made our life very easy. Actually, this very webinar has been fully studied with few videos, great deal of explanation, and especially what has been done on the grassroots level, the successful practices, especially the knowledge of the world and the knowledge of the language. They are very much important. So it has been underlined over here. The things, habit of thinking in English, actually, it is very key idea. And you all teachers, especially, you are going you all are the immediate role models for your learners. So all the ideas that have been shared over here are going to help you a lot. Dr. Ujjwal Karwande sir, he has been spending fair amount of time in he always think of how to enrich the teachers and the ideas so that students or learners can learn at ease. So I'm very thankful to Dr. Ujjwal Karwande sir for his excellent webinar. And after I think that a long gap, we all have been gifted with this very feast of knowledge. So may I request now the Honorable Director of Regional Academic of Authority of Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, Dr. Sunita Rathod ma'am, to have a word with us. It's over to Dr. Sunita Rathod ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I am visible, sir. Hello.
Yeah, ma'am. Go ahead.
Very good afternoon, everyone. This is the 5th session of our webinar series. This is organized by Regional Academy Authority, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar. During the last 4 sessions, we have been invited very good speakers to share their thoughts about English teaching and learning. I am very happy that you all have responded positively. As Regional Academy Authority is taking this opportunity to interact with all of you and to present various views of teaching and learning. This would help all the teachers and students of Maharashtra. In this webinar, we have invited one of the very remarkable personality of English teaching and learning, Dr. Ujjwal Karwande sir. Let me admit that one very short notice he has accepted our invitation, and the topic for this webinar he has choose is very important, because speaking is a very important skill in terms of getting mastery in the English language. I know that you all are contributing very well in the teaching and learning of English. In the future, also we will connecting this webinar series, and we will invite more and more teachers and expertise of English language on this platform. In the end, I am very thankful to all of you, for joining the webinar. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your great, valuable words. Now, last but not least, a vote of thanks, and for that very purpose, I'm over here. So, first of all, I'm very much thankful to Dr. Sunita Rathod ma'am, the Honorable Director of Regional Academic Authority, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, especially. I am also thankful to Dr. Vaishali Kamble ma'am, the Honorable Director of Diet Sambhaji Nagar, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar. I am also very much thankful to Dr. Vishal Tade sir, who has been always contributing for the noble cause. I am especially thankful to Dr. Ujjwal Karwande for his really, excellent webinar he has presented over here. I am also thankful to Prakash Wagmare sir, and last but not least, you all gentlemen and gentlewomen, really, all the gentlemen and ladies, really, even though today it's Sunday, the Cricket World Cup is going on, but whatever the time you have invested, definitely it will pay you the dividends. So on this very note, I'm very much thankful to you. Now it's over to Dr. Vishal Karwande.
Sir, I appreciate the spirit of all the listeners here, because it's the Sunday, the cricket match is going on, but still they have given their valuable time to us. So I'm very much thankful from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Vishal Tade, sir, please.
Yes, sir. Okay, this is really wonderful session. Now this is time to sum up the session now. Okay, I'm very thankful to each and everyone who have contributed here, especially Dr. Karwande sir, then Birappa Shinde sir, who is always helping us to deal with all the technical issues. Then on very short notice, my dear friend Pramod Gangavane sir accepted the responsibility to have the anchoring of this session. I'm very grateful to him. Again, Prakash Wagmare sir and all other dignitaries, my director, Dr. Sunita Rathod ma'am, and all the participants who participate in this session. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good evening. Enjoy the sun.